Hey everybody, welcome to your world premiere of Project Ultra. I am Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are so excited to talk to you about this project today, and we have with us Tom Swoyer, who is the president of GrandSKY. We've got Tom Ford, the director of administration for Grand Forks County in North Dakota, and Trevor Woods, the executive director for the Northern Plains UAS test site. So thank you all three, first of all, for being here today. Great to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And first, before we roll a video, which we're going to do in a second, Tom, I want to ask you, what does ULTRA mean? It is an acronym.
It is an acronym. It's an acronym we came up with. It's pretty simple. It's UAS, Logistics, Traffic, Research, and Autonomy.
All right. Well, it is a mouthful. I understand why you made that into an acronym. Tell us more about this Project Ultra. And while we do that, let's roll this video.
Sure, Don. Project Ultra is the name we gave this. We wanted it to encompass a lot of the different tasks that we're going to be working on. It's a program within the Office of Undersecretary of Defense that's been in place for a number of years now. That program has helped provide funding for UTM systems that NASA is developing, that AFRL, Air Force Research Lab, is developing. And now it's kind of growing into an operational test phase where the systems are going to be used for military and civilian testing. And I say military and civilian solutions for some military needs and trying to work through that airspace. So we're looking at revolutionizing Department of Defense's logistics, some traffic management using UAS technology.
Well, and frankly, you're doing it in a revolutionary way with this team of teams that you've gathered, Tom. And I want to talk a little bit about this because obviously we have Tom Ford here, we've got Trevor Woods here. It's kind of not what you would think as a quote unquote normal group of companies that do this work together like we're seeing in some other locations. I mean, we've got a county in the mix here. Let's talk first about why Grand Forks County is a big part of this project.
Sure. Grand Forks County is at the heart of everything we do at GrandSKY. GrandSKY itself is a public-private partnership between the Air Force, Grand Forks County, and GrandSKY. And Grand Forks County brings some capabilities to this program that we otherwise wouldn't have. But I think, candidly, we should turn this over to Tom Ford to tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take it over to Tom. But before we do that, one thing I want to foot stomp here, having been in the Air Force as a lawyer for over 28 years, this partnership between GrandSKY and Grand Forks County and Grand Forks Air Force Base is very unique. The enhanced use lease to be right on their flight line. I mean, there's not a lot out there like it. In fact, I'm going to say it's the only, well, maybe Peterson Air Force Base shares a flight line, I think, with the local Colorado Springs Airport, but super unique in what you're doing there. So Tom, let's go to Tom Ford, because tell us more about how Grand Forks County got into managing a Department of Defense contract for uncrewed aircraft systems.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I appreciate that. So Grand Forks County has been partnering with GrandSKY since 2015. GrandSKY really was a result of the community's investment into enhancing and maintaining and supporting Grand Forks Air Force Base in those missions. And to further expand on the 2005 BRAC round, which 20 years later, BRAC is still an ugly word in the community. It still has some scars. And so the county became aware of what is called an enhanced use lease, which was being offered to the United States Air Force about 15 years ago. And the county at the time decided to approach the Air Force with an unsolicited proposal, if you will, about this enhanced use lease idea. Due to the BRAC 05 drawdown of the tanker mission, there was some strategic capacity, as we like to call it, that the county could take advantage of to support and enhance the missions and the new missions at Grand Forks Air Force Base. The county provided a unique opportunity because we were a government entity, and the DoD obviously is a federal government entity, and so it was a government to government relationship. And of course, we're not developers, we're not property developers. So once we were able to work out this enhanced use lease with the United States Air Force, we put out some requests for proposals, and GrandSKY Development Company responded, and the rest is history, and it's been a great partnership since. So the county and its partnership with GrandSKY and its partnership with the air base is well suited to support a lot of those programs that will enhance and support the Air Force and the base.
That's awesome, Tom. I want to cut in for a second here. Like I said, just to foot stomp, really super unique, this enhanced use lease, and y'all have been doing so much since the time you forged this alliance with the Air Force, and then of course with GrandSKY. We're going to talk a little bit more about GrandSKY in a second, but before we do, tell us how Project Ultra is just this natural extension of what you've been doing over the last several years.
Yes, that's a great question. So Project Ultra is really an extension or expansion on what the county and the community are already doing with GrandSKY. We became aware of a request for proposal from the Department of Defense, specifically the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, in which they were looking for a location to conduct some testing and evaluation and research programming. What was really cool about that RFI or that RFP is it had already stated that Grand Forks Air Force Base was the best and most ideal site to conduct this, what we now call Project Ultra. Because the county is a government entity and because we already have existing contracts with GrandSKY Development Company and with Grand Forks Air Force Base and with the Air Force, it seemed like a natural fit and another natural way to enhance the existing partnership with GrandSKY and with the Air Force and the base. So we gathered the team, which you see on this call today, and put in a plan, and the Air Force and the DoD liked it, and here we are.
Having been on so many Air Force bases throughout my career, I think what most people don't appreciate is that Air Force bases are very much like cities, right? And that wing commander is like the mayor. And everything you think about that happens in a city happens on a base. You've got families living there. There's the commissary, which is your grocery store. You often have recreational things like golf courses and bowling alleys. You've got a lot of infrastructure that needs to be inspected and cared for, tons of roads. And so when you think of what UAS can bring to an Air Force base and how UAS traffic management, things like drone delivery, and of course counter UAS, all of these are critically important to bases. And it's so exciting that the DoD is finally embracing this and doing so with Grand Forks and GrandSKY. So Tom Ford, tell me a little bit, let's go high level. Tell us about this project and give me that high level overview.
Yeah, so what Project Ultra essentially allows the Grand Forks County team to do is be on that cutting edge of UAS, specifically in this case, small UAS integration. You had mentioned the installation is a city, and the air base commander is the mayor. But as you know, the footprint or the vision of what an Air Force installation is now compared to 20 years ago is changing. And so the county team, GrandSKY through Project Ultra, we're going to be on that cutting edge. We're going to be the ones blazing that trail to support the small UAS integration, where you could have some delivery from the community to the base or from the base to the community, whether it's food, maybe it's medicine, maybe it's small package delivery. But also here in Grand Forks County on GrandSKY, we're also testing and supporting counter UAS and what that means to the installation. As small UAS becomes more popular, as you can buy those off the shelves at a local store, the DoD broadly has to worry about the small drone flying over, taking pictures. And through Project Ultra, we're going to be on that cutting edge to get in front of that and help the Air Force, help the military design more effective ways to combat counter UAS.
Well, again, incredible. I'm almost speechless here. I'm so excited to see this happen. I'm going to go to Tom Swoyer to take us a little bit to how this is going to work from a timeline perspective. You know, what exactly is this contract with the DoD? Tell us a little bit more.
Sure, Don, just at its, from the contractual standpoint, it is a 5-year IDIQ contract, $18.25 million. We're in task order 1 right now, which will be concluded by September 30th. Task order 2 is going to kick off in October, hopefully. We're working on scope and pricing and how we negotiate that second task order. And Tom Ford mentioned, and you talked about it, Grand Forks County is the prime contractor in this. They have the contract with the Office of Undersecretary of Defense through Washington Headquarters Services. A lot of technical stuff in there, but it's important to name all the folks that we are working with in that. And then Grand Forks County has asked GrandSKY to be the lead subcontractor and kind of organize and orchestrate all of the workloads with all our different team members. So, as we start working, right now our first task is around traffic management. The next one will actually be flight ops around the package delivery. And then we'll start getting into some of the other roles.
Okay, great. So you use that buzzword task order, and you're in what you said, kind of task order phase 1, if you will. And so and Tom Ford mentioned this. I think this is an important thing to underscore. This isn't just insular on the base. This is bridging the local community with the base and flying drones from possibly downtown Grand Forks onto Grand Forks Air Force Base. That is incredibly significant. So when will, in what phase will we see these flights happening, do you think, Tom?
So it's kind of easier to understand if we start right at the beginning. Our first task is to model and simulate a flight from Grand Forks Air Force Base to Cavalier Space Force Station. That flight is approximately 50 nautical miles. We're trying to carry a 50-kilogram payload on the drone, but that's going to go through the National Airspace. It leaves the Class Delta airspace of Grand Forks Air Force Base, goes into the National Airspace, Class Echo, Class Golf, and we're going to hear some more about that in a moment. But as we go through that, then we land at Cavalier Space Force Station. So we're going to use a drone from a base through the National Airspace and enter the perimeter of Cavalier Space Force Station, which in and of itself is not the easiest tool. But what you were alluding to about bringing things onto base and doing things, I think that's going to happen in future years. Our next step is to actually execute the simulated flight. So we've simulated it with Freddie, we've simulated it with Clue, we've simulated the flight now with a couple other systems, and now we need to actually acquire the aircraft, and we're going to actually make the flight happen.
Okay.
That should happen by about this time next year.
All right, awesome. Now you just mentioned 2 words, Freddie and Clue. Again, I think these are acronyms. Tell us a little bit more about those, Tom.
I was worried you were going to ask me about the acronyms. I don't know what the acronyms stand for.
But these are NASA. These are NASA simulation models.
They are. So NASA has the Clue system, and I think Trevor Woods, who's with us, can go into them in more detail. But they're both UAS traffic management tools for being able to put a UAS into the airspace and deconflict from other UAS and other activities happening on. So they are designed for traffic management to ultimately enable beyond visual line of sight operations.
All right, I know Trevor's holding fast and we're going to get to him in a second, but before we do, Tom, I want you to tell everybody why GrandSKY in particular is the ideal location for this project.
Sure, now we're really in my wheelhouse here with this. We are uniquely positioned. We are a UAS specific business development flight test center. We are located on Grand Forks Air Force Base. And with our strong partnership with Grand Forks County, who's really our landlord, and the Air Force is the county's landlord, plus our partnership with the Northern Plains Test Site. We have the University of North Dakota right down the street from us, and we just have just a bunch of different partners in the Grand Forks area that can all bring different talents and different tool sets, and different really specific focused skill sets that can really utilize this. So from our point of view, GrandSKY has the infrastructure. We have the joint use agreement, the enhanced use lease, all the permissions that allow us to work on an Air Force base with a civilian UAS concept. And then we turn to our partner at the UAS test site, who brings to us all the FAA coordination, the waivers, airspace authorization, all the things that make FAA comfortable, including helping us set up our own beyond line of sight system, which, believe it or not, this week is entering its 6th anniversary of being able to use beyond line of sight operations at GrandSKY. So, but without the test site, without the county, without GrandSKY, all of that together is what makes it work.
Well, and the infrastructure is so critically important. And Tom, you know, I've been out there. You and I have worked together before. I was there during the ribbon cutting when you guys opened the mission, the MNOC, Mission Network Operations Center. You know, you've got these anchors with Northrop Grumman and General Atomics there. I mean, so much going on at GrandSKY, and the infrastructure is so critically important. And obviously, Ultra is going to enhance airspace situational awareness and traffic management. So tell us a little bit more about that, Tom, and then we'll move over to Trevor to tell us, as a practical matter and on a granular level, how it's going to work with that infrastructure.
Sure. We need to, our ultimate goal is to bring UAS capabilities to the military environment, beneficial UAS. So if we're going to make package deliveries, whether it's medicine or food, if we're going to be able to carry cargo from Grand Forks Air Force Base to Cavalier, and this isn't a one-off. Our goal, ultimate goal, is for there to be a parade of drones constantly going back and forth between Cavalier and Grand Forks Air Force Base, being able to bring all kinds of things back and forth between the two to improve quality of life, to improve mission capability, whether it's tools or parts, or just a nice treat of some Chick-fil-A the folks up at Cavalier have asked for. And let's not underestimate the value of a good Chick-fil-A sandwich when we need to. So we really look forward to being able to do that. But to do that, we've got to deal with all the airspace authorization. We have to deal with the safety case. We have to deal with how are we going to safely and legally put that aircraft in the air to carry something the 50 nautical miles to get to Cavalier. So that's where Trevor Woods and the Northern Plains Test Site comes in.
All right, well, let's talk about that, Trevor, because I heard Tom mention Class Echo, Class Delta, Class Golf. I mean, fun fact, I don't know if you all realize that I'm actually a licensed drone pilot. You don't want me flying, but I did take the test to understand, you know, what everybody goes through and appreciate it better. And man, those little circles around the airports and around Air Force bases make it super complex in terms of getting approvals. And Trevor, that's what I know you guys bring to the fight in part. So tell us a little bit more about your involvement at the UAS, Northern Plains UAS test site with Project Ultra, and how you plan to help enhance situational awareness and traffic management through the tools that you bring.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And, thanks, Tom Swoyer, for the mentions of the test site and everything we do here. I like to, Tom's heard me say this before, GrandSKY is in essence like a dedicated airport for UAS and drones. And so as such, like I treat it just like any other airport. It just happens to be situated at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. But this is more like complex than people realize. You know, we've package delivery or cargo delivery, but it's we need to appreciate the fact that this is in fact departing off of a Class Delta airport, and then it is having to climb up, and it is having to do that in the National Airspace System. It is doing that. It happens to be above the Grand Forks Air Force Base, but it is the NAS. And so this aircraft and the system is going to be required to operate within the NAS, and it needs to be able to traverse a Class Echo airspace while dealing with all the other traffic in the area, and eventually land at the Cavalier Space Force Station. And so this is beyond visual line of sight, true and true. As Tom said, it's approximately 50 nautical miles away as the crow flies. And so the test site team has really been approaching this challenge from the perspective of, this isn't just a one-off. It's not something that we're going to the FAA and just saying, hey, how do we do this once as a tech demo? We're really approaching it from, how do we enable an operation that can be repeated over and over again? And I always think that the FAA, when you pose the question to them of, I just want to do this one thing one time, the safety risk assessment and the airspace approval process is different than if you're approaching them and saying, hey, I want to be able to do this over and over again. As Tom said, the parade of drones. That's a different challenge. And so when you know that that's the end state objective, you're going to start the conversation from a different perspective. I like analogies. And so if you're going to go run the marathon, you're going to start off by running a mile and eventually get to a 5K and a 10K, and you're going to train accordingly to get to your marathon. But if only you ever want to run a 5K, your training is probably going to be a little bit different. And so the way we approach this this particular operation is with that marathon in mind.
Well, I guess I've never run a marathon, full transparency here. I think the most I've run is a 10K, and you're not going to find me doing that anytime soon. But, today, people that train for these things, they have a lot of technologies, right? They've got some kind of a watch that's tracking their heart rate and their mileage and all these kinds of things. What technologies are you bringing to train for this big marathon that is Project Ultra?
That's a great question, Don. Yeah, the technology here, I think, is multifaceted. When we are, as was previously stated, we're looking at UTM or UAS traffic management systems here. Specifically, Freddie and Clue have been mentioned. There's others we're going to be evaluating as well. The question really is how do those systems enhance safety, enhance efficiency, reliability of operations in the NAS? And that's still a system, a concept that's in development. And so the way we are having to approach this today is, we want to actually fly this drone, just as I stated previously, and we are going to need to leverage existing technologies and existing processes of the airspace system today. That would be using such things as filing flight plans or evaluating how we fit within the context of VFR or IFR flight rules, how we are going to coordinate with air traffic control as we understand it today. And as Tom Swoyer mentioned previously, they have the tactical deconfliction system, the ground-based sense and avoid system that's been in operation for several years at GrandSKY. And so we expect that we're going to leverage all of this to allow the operation to fly today. But the whole purpose of Project Ultra is to explore and evaluate how new technologies can be leveraged to increase safety and efficiency into the NAS, potentially relying on things such as automation to allow that to happen. The example is strategically coordinating multiple users in the airspace system today. Today, we have to file flight plans. We have to talk with air traffic control in order to do that. It works. There's nothing inherently wrong with that system. But when you start to really increase the traffic load, you start to throw a lot more drones up. You have manned traffic. And in our case, we have drones and manned traffic interacting with each other. We need to explore how automation systems such as UTM may offload that work from just the air traffic control, just the human. And so that's really one of the things that's being explored here. Is Project Ultra is really employing several advanced technologies that we are testing and developing and benchmarking to enhance that airspace situational tool. We're really leveraging.
Yeah, I was going to say, Trevor, just kind of cutting in here for a second. When you think about the environment you're operating in there, not only do you have, let's just call it civil air traffic control in the National Airspace System, in the local area, you're also talking about, right, the air traffic control at Grand Forks Air Force Base. I mean, literally GrandSKY is on a flight line that is shared with the base. So the complexity of this, I think, cannot really be overstated. in what you guys are taking on. I think it's very significant. Will be a model for so many others to follow in ways that you know, that nobody else has really achieved yet. So tell me, Trevor, you know, you've had the test site for a while now. You've been doing beyond visual line of sight operations there. What lessons learned from your experience, your prior experience at the test site, are you going to leverage in this new project?
Yeah, that's a fun question to answer. You know, if we have several hours, I could go into some depth on
We
that,
really
but
don't.
I'll try to
Well,
keep
like,
it.
let's keep it.
I'll keep it abbreviated here. But yeah, our test site, and I can't speak for the other test sites, but specifically the Northern Plains UAS test site has had a rich history in being involved with and helping to create beyond visual line of sight systems. And we've done that leveraging the rich history with the University of North Dakota, our partnership with GrandSKY, other entities. Our actual first large scale approval for BVLOS was actually at GrandSKY. It's that system that's still in operation today. We spent several years getting that system up and running. And so the fact that it is still running today, you know, for nearly 6 years is a really impressive feat. The good and bad. The good was that, you know, we achieved what we set out to do with that system. But like I explained earlier, we probably didn't approach it from the perspective of how are we going to global operation. And due to some other efforts we were part of at the test, we had the opportunity that is today known as VANTIS, which is the North Dakota's statewide beyond visual line of sight system. And so VANTIS is really built on top of what we learned from the GrandSKY system, as well as some of our other prior work. And we really looked at it from the lens of creating a framework that's scalable and repeatable, an architecture that prioritizes safety standards and regulatory compliance. And in doing so, we approached the FAA the same way the FAA would approach an infrastructure system or an infrastructure rollout. And so we did all our safety case assessment, our standards, our operational procedures, our safety assurance, everything as if we were the FAA. And I think the fact that we have obtained regulatory approvals on that system, more than one, is proof that we're doing this the right way. So in the context of your question, Don, and what we're doing here for Project Ultra, our conversation with the Department of Defense and the FAA is from that same perspective. Is look, we're not just trying to create a one-off solution. If we want to create the parade of drones, as Tom mentioned, this needs to be something that is looked at as any other airspace system or infrastructure system that's going to enable operations. And so that's really the key part of the lessons learned, is recognizing that we don't want to go and just create a tech demo. We want to create something that will enable those operations here, but also can be copy and pasted to other installations in the future, whether that's because the DoD wants to do it or because the FAA wants to do it. We can speculate on that in the future. But the important part is that we have a framework here that can be expanded to other like environments, or even if not like environments, we can easily track the delta assessment, changes assessment from one environment to the next, and maintain the continuity from the regulatory and safety
side. You know, I think as an industry started to progress from 100%, you know, R&D, as you say, Trevor, these kind of one-off, let's go from point A to point B, to more regularized, ubiquitous operations in certain areas. You know, I think the term FAA is kind of moving towards, in this regard, is this operational evaluation. You know, this isn't T&E, this isn't test and eval, this isn't R&D, right? Research and development. This is real world operations. Like, we're really, really doing it. And exciting to see this happening in GrandSKY, in North Dakota. Lots going on. So Tom Swoyer, I want you to take us back to the big picture here. You know, we know that Project Ultra intends to really revolutionize the use of UAS for a whole variety of purposes. You know, Grand Forks County as the lead, traffic management using different federal UTMs like Freddie and Clue that we've mentioned, looking to develop reliable, scalable capabilities for cargo delivery, other logistics. Do I have that right? Did I miss anything?
No, you have that exactly right. And I really appreciate your use of the word operational evaluation. While we are certainly testing some things, we're testing them in a framework of getting them ready for actual flight. So the tests are occurring in simulations and modeling, and then we're going to actually operationally evaluate. That's the way we're going to get to aircraft in the airspace, and something along the lines of, one of the goals of this program is an enduring capability at Grand Forks Air Force Base. Aircraft may change, procedures may change, but the use of the aircraft, the use of this kind of system to solve problems of either manpower solutions or being able to expand a force multiplier for mission support, that's what ultimately the goal is.
Well, and in terms of the partners you're looking for, really, with all these lofty goals, there's some other functionalities, right? Not just the ones we've been talking about, like counter UAS partners, and we're going to get to this more in a second. But Tom Swoyer, back to you. You're going to need things like dispatch, right? Like, in other words, what are some of the other, let's just say, secondary kind of partnerships and technologies that you're looking to bring into the fold here, besides, like just say drone companies to do those drone deliveries, or UTM companies to help with the UAS traffic management? What are some of these other ones?
Sure, we've got a variety of other uses. Infrastructure inspection and monitoring, for example, rooftop inspections, parking lots, roads, perimeter inspection around the base, building envelope, energy management. Some of these things are not really UAS specific. They're not aircraft specific. They're going to be a lot more about the data capture and the data analysis. And we have to do that in a cyber secure data environment that doesn't create a whole bunch of geo-rectified targets, because we've done this geo-rectified roof inspection or road inspection. Supporting with security, just regular old package delivery, food delivery, tool delivery. If I've got 4 people and they're out working on a project out on the far end of the base and they forgot a tool, well, if I can dispatch a drone to carry that wrench that they maybe forgot, as an example, what a great savings instead of a crew coming all the way back. We see that in the oil field in western North Dakota all the time, about an oil rig going down because they're missing some simple part or a simple tool. But you mentioned dispatch. Dispatch is something we're very interested in. So imagine that example, a drone is carrying a wrench to the team that misplaced it or forgot to bring it with them. And then all of a sudden, God forbid, we have some emergency, an active shooter would be the worst case scenario, or something else. How does that drone, in the process of delivering that wrench, stop what it's doing and retask itself to put a camera onto whatever the emergency situation is, and then begin to broadcast that information, again, in a cyber secure environment that can broadcast that information back to the emergency responders that need it? The wrench ceases to become the most important thing to that particular aircraft mission. Getting the information to responders does. So that dispatching a drone that is already in the air is something, because we got to manage battery life. Is it better for that drone to continue on its wrench delivery mission and bring a new one in, or can we get 20 minutes of good coverage time? That's something that we're really going to have to work out, because that's an active management. And then eventually we want to, and as you kind of work through dispatch, you get yourself into, how do we bring drone deliveries onto the base from off base? How do we create more food service options for the men and women that work there, the families that live there? That's really important for us to be able to say, how do we cross that security perimeter with a civilian drone? How does a Walmart delivery get on base? That is not an easy task right now. Right now, we presume that any drone that's approaching the perimeter is a nefarious actor that it's a malintention or somebody who just really has no idea what they're doing. And so getting those drones to be able to come on base securely and safely, and we know that who they are, that's going to be a huge task. And I see Project Ultra being able to support those kinds of projects.
Well, absolutely. And, even today you can order DoorDash and the car will drive onto the base, right? So having a drone deliver, that sandwich or those goods is not really a far leap of the imagination. Like you said, it's all those things that go along with it. And frankly, I've said this forever, counter UAS is the yin to UAS's yang, right? Like, in other words, it could be a piece of the counter UAS, piece of the UTM system, all working in an integrated way to enable this as part of the project. So tell us a little bit more about the vision for counter UAS and what is the tasking for that with Ultra?
So right now we don't have direct tasking for counter UAS. It's something that's on the agenda. Right now we want to get this first logistics flight done. That's going to be what task 2 through end of September next of 2025 will take us through. And we start to think that that counter UAS may start to come up after that, but we're already laying the groundwork on the counter UAS side, because traffic management, above all else, is you're managing traffic. In fact, we don't even call it traffic management now. We call it ACES, Airspace Integration Services, because you take a volume of airspace and maybe that volume is just over the base, maybe that volume of airspace is just over GrandSKY, or maybe it's the 50 nautical miles from Grand Forks Air Force Base to Cavalier Space Force Station. And how do we manage that environment in a comprehensive way? How do we know everybody that's in that airspace? How do we know what they're doing in that airspace? And by doing that, we naturally pick up a counter UAS detection. If nothing else, we can filter out all the ones we know, and the ones we don't know are the ones we have to pay attention to. And so the drones we don't know flying. So by doing all this traffic management work, doing this ACES work, as we're starting to call it, and using the NASA system, using the AFRL system, and in a plan to use commercially available systems that are out there in the space. There are some great systems that I've seen demonstrations of that we want to bring those systems in to include them in all this development work. So if we can bring all that together, we're already working through the UTM, the traffic management part, and the drone identification and management, which is absolutely the ground floor foundational level for a UAS, counter UAS.
Well, look, a ton going on here. And so everything from logistics to cargo and other deliveries to traffic management to counter UAS to all of the technologies and infrastructures needed to make all that happen in a ubiquitous way on a daily basis. So the $2 million question is, Tom, how can people get involved? Because this is a multi-year effort. You need so many partners. You've got great ones here, and maybe we can pop up everybody's heads again. We see Tom Ford and Trevor Woods and like the whole team here. This is one team united in Grand Forks, but really looking for teams of teams here. How can people get involved? Tell us a little bit more what you're looking for.
Sure. We are, first, this isn't just about looking for UAS partners. Right now, we're going through a process. We've been directed by the Office of Undersecretary of Defense to look at UAS in the short term that are already part of SBIR programs or part of other federal testing programs, where we know what some operational hours are, we know what capabilities are. But I see that we're going to transition into, what does the market have? We are looking for something that can carry 50 kilograms, 50 nautical miles and back. So it's really a 100 nautical mile flight, something that's got good reliability, something that we can scale up on manufacturing if we want to acquire more. But it's also got to operate in nearly all weather conditions, which in North Dakota January is nothing to sneeze at. So, we've got to operate in high wind environment. We've got to operate in cold environment. It's pretty hot up there right now and humid. It's very stormy. Storms are, headed that direction. So we've got to operate in that real world environment for payload management and carrying stuff back and forth. But, I think this is really, first we have our website, www.projectultra-uas.com. That's a website where people can go and say, hey, I have something you might be interested in. We're going to be at Commercial UAV. Trevor and I will be there. We would love to hear from you if you have something that if somebody has a technology or a tool, and this doesn't have to be restricted to aircraft. If you've got a great ground management system to manage multiple drones on the ground and payload, if you've got a great, heck, I want to hear from insurance companies that can figure out how to help us deal with 25 drones going back and forth on the same route doing the same thing. How do we manage all this from an insurance standpoint? This has to be viable in the long run. We have to have an enduring solution. So every aspect of a UAS flight, from piloting, from mission management, to what happens when we have an in-air issue and somebody has to divert and ditch, how do we go get that aircraft? How do we work with the landowners? Every kind of system that goes into this does not need to be one holistic tool that one company delivers. We envision that there's going to be dozens of companies participating in some way, and we want to learn more about it.
All right. Well, speaking of learning more, let's go around the horn real quick as we close out. I'm going to start with Tom Ford. I know, Tom, you all welcome every year to the UAS Summit folks from all over the country, in fact, all over the world. You've got your legislative leaders there. Any closing remarks as we close out the show, and what can we expect in the future?
Yeah, thanks, Don. So Project Ultra is exactly why the county and the community brought GrandSKY here, so that we can use programs, so that we can work with the ecosystem and our partners such as GrandSKY, Northrop Grumman, General Atomics, the test site, UND, so that we can all work together to provide long-term, sustainable, real solutions to the challenges that the Department of Defense and the Air Force are seeing today. But it's also about putting North Dakota and Grand Forks on the map and making really at the heart of all things UAS. So looking forward to the UAS Summit, which you mentioned, because that's a great opportunity for the really smart people like Tom Swoyer and Trevor to continue talking about what it is we're accomplishing at GrandSKY and with Project Ultra. And like Tom said, there are opportunities for many, many companies and people to get involved. And I think the UAS Summit is going to be a great platform to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Tom. And Trevor, over to you, kind of same question. Any concluding remarks and what can we expect from the Northern Plains UAS test site with regard to Project Ultra going forward?
Yeah, thank you. My closing thoughts on this is I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And, North Dakota has a communication challenge, as we like to say, where, I think folks don't necessarily realize what's going on up here until they see it firsthand. And so, both for the UAS Summits, that opportunity to really showcase what's going on in North Dakota and with our partners in the ecosystem. But it's just to continually talk about it. And the fact that the Department of Defense is partnering with North Dakota to accomplish this mission, I think, just validates that we're on the right trajectory for integrating, drones and future air mobility vehicles the right way. And so I look forward to continuing those conversations with folks that may come up here for the UAS Summit. And of course, anybody who wants to talk about it outside of the summit.
I'll tell you what, I never thought I'd say this, but boy, would it be fun to be the SJA at Grand Forks Air Force Base right now, working on some of these issues from the military side in terms of approvals and all those things to integrate with the civilian side of the house as well. Super exciting times indeed. Tom Swoyer, let's end it with you. You've brought this team together. Thanks for taking the time to share with us and of course with everybody else out there. Any concluding remarks, Tom?
Yeah, I think that, first, it's great working with Tom Ford. It's great working with Trevor Woods and everyone at the test site, everyone at Grand Forks County. And I appreciate you taking the time to let us tell our story today. But the one partner who is ubiquitous to all of this is Grand Forks Air Force Base and the 319th Reconnaissance Wing. Without them, without their leadership, without their can-do attitude, because we visit with the airspace manager and the tower manager, the tower controllers, and we say, hey, we've got this idea. Oh, you can just see them start to.
I've been in those rooms.
Yeah, you can see them just, okay. And then, oh, yeah, we can do that. That's not hard. For example, we just hosted Kratos, which launched a jet-powered drone that flies at Mach 0.8 off of a launch cart off the runway at Grand Forks Air Force Base. And without a partner like the 319th Reconnaissance Wing, it would be very hard to do that. And I use as an example, there was a great article at MacDill Air Force Base where they just landed a heavy aircraft, I believe it was a KC-135 or KC-10, while 2 other small drones were operating somewhere else on the base. And I shared that article with the folks at the 319th, and they called it Tuesday. That's a normal Tuesday for us.
There you
go. There's a lot of advancement and work, and without them, none of this happens.
All right, very good. And again, for everybody out there, these folks are looking for partners. This project cannot get off the ground without the right companies and the right people at the table and making it happen. So once again, Tom, to close us out, tell them one more time how they can get involved and how they can learn about Project Ultra.
The easiest way is to go to www.projectultra-uas.com. We have a form in there. There'll be an email address for Mr. Christopher Hewlett, our project director, who can respond back. We are already taking meetings with companies that have a technology or a particular capability. We are logging it all and we are responding back to folks. So that's the fastest way. The other way is to find you at Commercial UAV, because you'll probably know where I'll be. So.
That's true. I'll be able to find Tom for you running around Vegas. And not only that, of course, head to North Dakota for the UAS Summit early October. It's going to be a great event. I will be there moderating a panel with these gentlemen. So super excited for that opportunity, and also doing a full crew live. So stay tuned for more. In the meantime, everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention. We are out here.